Hello! So, you're in the UK right now and you're planning to fly back to Malaysia. But what are the rules and regulations? Do you need a COVID test? Do you need permission to fly back? What do you need to prepare? No worries. In this video, I'll be bringing you step by step of before the flight, during the flight, and afterwards, the quarantine process. With a part 2 coming up. Let's go! What to prepare before you fly. 3 main things. Firstly, you need to book your flight. I mean, duh, yes. But be careful. Depending on where you're going in Malaysia, you have to book specific airlines. For example, if you're flying to Penang, which is what I'm doing, but the flight lands in KL as a transit, that means you're going to quarantine in KL. Basically, the first city which your airplane touched down at is where you're going to quarantine. I didn't want to quarantine in KL, mainly because, with the whole restrictive movement, I didn't know if I could travel between states. So I flew with Singapore Airlines straight to Penang. Singapore Airlines right now is one of the few, or if not, the only airline that actually flies direct to Penang. Another tip when booking your flight is not to book with third parties. I usually book with Skyscanner to find cheap flights, but this time it is very, very important for you to buy tickets from the actual airline itself. This is because what if your flight gets cancelled? What if you don't know which documents you need to enter Singapore? What if you suddenly need to change your ticket last minute? That's why I booked on the Singapore Airlines website, and they were really kind about it because they constantly, the week before my flight, they checked up on me. They were like, do you have all your documents? Can you send us all the documents that you have? What passport do you have? Do you have permission? They were really nice, and they often gave me like calls and just emails to make sure that I was on track. Number 2, very, very important thing is the LOU. Now the LOU stands for Letter of Undertaking. It's a letter which you can download from this site. It's the government embassy website. You fill it in, your IC details, where you currently live, your health declaration, your next of kin and their IC, where you're gonna stay in Malaysia. After you fill out your LOU, you need to do this 3rd step. You need to get permission. In order to do that, you must send an email with this in the email title to this email address, which is the embassy. Only send this email a week before you fly because they only check the emails and give permission for those who are flying within the week. So the things that you need to send them is number 1, a copy scan of your passport, and number 2, the LOU. After 2 to 3 working days, they will immediately send you a back-end email stating, yes, you're allowed to fly back. This is very important. You are not allowed to leave the UK unless you get a letter of approval by the embassy. Just a summary, keep in mind, book your flight so far, fill in the LOU, send the LOU and a copy of your passport scan to the government, and the government embassy will give you a letter of permission. Print these papers out. Print them out because you need to show them at every immigration checkpoint when you leave the country. Oh, and another thing, you need to download the MySejahtera app. Now this is supposed to be downloaded 3 days before you fly, and the things that you fill out for is number 1, your health declaration. So 3 days before, you tell them, I'm feeling good today, I have no symptoms, check. The MySejahtera app comes in both Bahasa Melayu and English. You need to download this MySejahtera app. It is vital. This is because once you land in Malaysia, they will ask you to check in and QR codes and everything, so it's good to download it 3 days beforehand. There's also a QR code which asks you to check in. This QR code allows you to put in your flight details and what day you're flying on, so they will know when you will arrive. More about the hotel process at the end of this video. Next part, what to do during the flight. Alright, by now you should already have your documents in hand. You've also downloaded the MySejahtera app. When you check into immigration, they will ask to see your LOU and the letter of permission. Give the documents to the immigration, they will give it to you back. Check in the MySejahtera app if you haven't done so already. Make sure when you're at the airport you have a Malaysian SIM card ready because this is vital and very, very helpful once you reach Malaysia. Remember, you're only allowed to know which hotel you're allocated to once you touch down in Malaysia. You don't get to choose at all.
Thank you for your attention.
Now let's go into the Singapore Airlines flight. This was my first time flying with the airline, and I do have to say I was very, very impressed of how they handled it. Unlike Qatar, which you can see in my previous video, they did not give us the protective headgear, but they did give us like a sanitary pack which consists of these items. During the flight, they made sure to social distance us, so there was always an empty seat in between each passenger. The food was also really nice. I was surprised. During the flight, you're actually not allowed to bring any wet food or packet food, pre-prepared food in your luggage at all. I don't know why, but Singapore Airlines doesn't allow you to do that. I was quite happy throughout the flight and it went really smoothly. Alright, once I touched down at Singapore, this is how it goes. They led us to the segregated hall right after you touch down. So you're not allowed to go visit any shops, you're not allowed to go see any beautiful waterfalls. No, at Changi, you're supposed to stay in this section. They were very clear and nice. They had like a whole team there welcoming us. It felt like I was a very important person, but they handed us like mineral water and some tags and just made us sit down. At the waiting area, there are some little stalls where you can buy Maggi mee if such, and there's a playground and a TV station that was playing Elmo at the time. After that, it's time for your second flight. So this is the Singapore to Malaysia section, which in my case was to Penang. Let's go to the third section of this video, which is touchdown in Malaysia. After you land in Malaysia, you're brought into this hall at the airport. This is where they will debrief you on which hotel you're going to. As mentioned, you're not allowed to choose the hotel, so they will tell you which hotel you will be staying in. In Penang, there's only two so far, Bahang Bay and Rainbow Paradise Hotel. I managed to get Rainbow Paradise Hotel, which I'm so happy about because number one, it has a sea view, and number two, it's right next to my old high school, so I could actually see when the students come out. Anyways, after the debrief, you're supposed to check in with your My Sejahtera app. This is where you can declare your health symptoms and just check in. After that, you have to wait in turns as the health people will call out your name to do the COVID test. The whole process takes around 2 to 3 hours. You're supposed to wait till everyone in your batch has done the COVID test and the results has come back. Then maybe only proceed to the hotel. Jumping back to the COVID test process, they will call you one by one to number one, firstly, pay the 30 ringgit fee for the COVID test. If you're a student, this is completely free for you. You just need your IC and student card to let them know, hey, this is what's happening. You'll also give them your LOU, and they will pass you a health declaration form. Now this health declaration form, you don't need to worry, you will fill it out at the COVID test station at the airport itself. After you've paid, you're led to another section near these isolated rooms. Once you enter these isolated rooms, that's where you take your COVID test. And guys, wow, it was really cool. It was like X-Men, or you know, like in Captain America where Bucky's in like that glass box. So they have a glass box and like a little circle where you can reach your hand inside to like jab you. It's a swab test, so they didn't do they didn't stuck it down your throat, but they stuck it up your nose. Anyways, so I went into this glass box and sat down, and I just tilted my head up while the other lady was like... Anyways, I did the COVID test. I was negative, yay! Then we went to immigration. When we go to immigration, before you do so, you need to grab your bags. The great thing about it is because the whole entire COVID test took around like 2 to 3 hours, they already took the luggage for you. I didn't know how they knew which luggage was mine, but they put 2 of my luggage together and they've sprayed it with like sanitizing equipment stuff. Before we go to immigration, we also were sanitized, so we were brought out one by one and we had to stand like this, and they just like use a hose and they sprayed us down front and back. Then we went to the immigration, did the usual immigration things, got on a bus, and then we got to the hotel. Once we got to the hotel, similar things happened. We had a debrief. Secondly, you had to pay the deposit for your hotel room, or you can pay in full there and there. And lastly, they will escort you one by one to your specific rooms, which is where I am currently. Honestly, the quarantine process has been amazing and I hope this video has been very helpful for you guys. Feel free to ask any questions down below. I've also inserted a link where there's a document stating exactly what you need to do, both in Malay and English. So keep your eyes out for a part 2 on the quarantine process on what to expect when you're quarantining in Penang, Malaysia. I'll see you in the next one then. Bye! Log out.
For sore eyes, brighter than a blue sky.